We found the best Pokemon to solo the Elite Four and Champion in every region, and we're gonna show you exactly who they are and why they work so well. What's going on, guys? It's HybridHero here, and my good buddy JPR from the Crazy Annie Pokemon and the Champion League podcast reached out to me and was like,
"Hey, you wanna work on this really cool collab idea that nobody has done before?"
And I was like, hey, let's do it. We already covered Kanto to Sinnoh over on John's channel, meaning that we're gonna be doing Unova to Galar over here. But if you haven't checked out part 1, be sure to do that as well. And before every region, comment down below letting us know your guess as to which Pokemon you think can solo the Elite Four there, and let's see how many of them you guys guess correctly. It's the exact same rules as the last video, except minor things we'll discuss as we go on. So you're gonna have to watch the first video if you want to learn more.
So for Unova, we will have to consider the two different versions of the league. In Black and White 1, I firmly believe that Krookodile is the right choice, especially when we take N and Ghetsis into consideration. With Crunch alone, Krookodile easily solos Chantal and Caitlyn, and with Brick Break, it easily wins over Grimsley as well.
That's great and all, JPR, but what about Marshall? How is Krookodile overcoming him?
Marshall is very tricky, admittedly for the entire Unova Pokedex, since he has extremely good coverage moves. If you run the calcs, a Krookodile should always live against Throw's Storm Throw, so you could use that turn to bulk up and then KO with Earthquake. And if you have the Moxie ability, then sweeping with Earthquake just got that much easier. I would not recommend Intimidate since it would only activate against Throw, and its move always crits to negate the attack drop. Definitely have the Citrus Berry equipped here because you will need to tank another attack from Sock since it has Sturdy. But thankfully its only fighting move is Karate Chop, which Krookodile should certainly live even with a crit. Thanks to Bulk Up and Moxie's collective buffs, Earthquaking and one-hit KOing the Conkeldurr is surprisingly easy.
Okay, but Mien Xiao's up next. Krookodile has to be screwed here.
Actually, not really. At level 56, the average Krookodile should outspeed the Mien Xiao and easily pick up the KO with Earthquake. The gap in their speed stats may look large, but it's definitely surmountable, especially if you battle Marshall last to get the most EXP possible. As for N, Krookodile's Earthquake and Brick Break should honestly handle everything, especially if you set up accordingly with Bulk Up. Even Reshiram and Zekrom are no threat to our Killer Croc. Ghetsis is a bit trickier thanks to Seismitoad and Hydreigon, but thanks to Moxie, they can also be taken down easier than you think. Just make sure you're holding a Pecha Berry in this fight so Krookodile can bulk up on turn 1 without worrying about Cofagrigus' Toxic. After that, Crunch should always OHKO if you're level 58 or above, which is easily reachable. Now that you've reached +2 attack thanks to Moxie and Bulk Up, Krookodile can now mathematically KO any Pokemon remaining on Ghetsis' team between Brick Break, Crunch, and Earthquake. Only Hydreigon has a better base speed, but again, so long as you're level 58, you should always outspeed unless you have a terrible nature.
Oh man, that was a lot. I hope Black and White 2 is more straightforward.
Thankfully it is, as Gliscor is the easy go-to option here. Between Swords Dance and Night Slash, Chantal and Caitlyn are easy money. The biggest threat on either of those teams is Caitlyn's Sigilyph, which carries Ice Beam, and with 97 base speed, Sigilyph does narrowly outspeed Gliscor, who has 95. But again, with a good nature and a couple extra levels, Gliscor can overcome this deficit. You will need to watch out for Yawn against Musharna though, which it will certainly go for since it can't hit Gliscor with Charge Beam. Chesto Berry is definitely the recommended item for this fight. Grimsley is probably the easiest of them all. He only carries physical moves which Gliscor tanks for days. Marshall has the same problem of only using physical moves, plus Acrobatics takes care of his whole team with no problem. Iris is certainly a bit of a doozy though. You definitely need the Swords Dance before the Lapras comes out to have any chance of one-shotting it. But that means setting up in front of Hydreigon, who has Surf. As long as you don't get crit, you'll live with just under half HP. You definitely want a Citrus Berry though, because you'll have to tank one more attack from Iris's Haxorus since it holds a Focus Sash. If you Swords Danced on turn 1 and you have a speed boosting nature to move quicker than Hydreigon, then Sky Uppercut is a guaranteed KO on turn 2, as long as you don't miss. Same goes for Lapras, who is most likely coming out immediately afterward. Everything else is very easy for Gliscor to clean up. Admittedly, you'll need a little luck for Sky Uppercut to hit all the Pokemon it needs to, but with RNG willing, you should pull off the victory.
Kalos was a doozy for us to pick the ace, cause Kalos' dex is pretty friggin' crazy. There are plenty of options and plenty of good Pokemon to pick from, but honestly, like John mentioned about Gen 3, Gen 6 is hard for about the same reasons. The Kalos Elite Four has typings of Fire, Water, Dragon, and Steel, typings that are opposites to one another, which in a way makes them complementary to one another as well, because it's kind of difficult to find a Pokemon that can beat all 4 of these typings when they cover each other's weaknesses. We thought that Flygon would probably be the best choice for a good while, because it actually has Dragon Dance this generation. It has Earthquake for Malva and Wikstrom, Dragon type moves for Drasna, and for Seabolt, it could also get by with Dragon Dance maybe. It was looking a little tough with Intimidate Gyarados with Ice Fang, but it seemed doable. Until we got to Diantha. Yeah, no shot Flygon gets through all of this. There's just way too much to worry about.
I think you were actually screwed back at Seabold, but hey, at least we agree.
Screw you, John. Of course, we thought about Mega Pokemon, but the problem with X and Y is that most of the Megas are locked to the post-game. Main game, you only get a handful of Mega Pokemon, like the Mega Starters, Mega Ampharos, Mega Gengar, Mega Lucario, Mega...
Hang on, can you repeat that last one for me?
Wait a minute. Gengar? Holy Mega Gengar doesn't even need to have a type advantage over anything, it's just purely insanely busted. With a speed stat total of 130 and a special attack of freaking 170? Yeah, this thing cleans the floor. Shadow Ball is your bread and butter for anything that's not normal type. You have access to Dazzling Gleam for Dragons, Thunderbolt for Seabolt, you have access to Sludge Bomb, Dark Pulse, Energy Ball, and so much more. Best part is, aside from Shadow Ball, pretty much every other move comes from the form of a TM, meaning you can just swap Gengar's moveset on the fly. Your go-to moveset's probably gonna be Shadow Ball, Dazzling Gleam, Sludge Bomb, and Thunderbolt, with some changes here and there, like Energy Ball for Seabolt and Dark Pulse for Wikstrom. The biggest threat between the Elite Four might just be Malva's Torkoal and Wikstrom's Scizor, since Gengar doesn't really have anything to hit these two tanks for super effective damage. But they have Earthquake and Night Slash to hit you right back. On Malva's end though, Torkoal should be the only thing that possibly hits you. You have super effective moves to the rest of their team, and Pyro shouldn't be all that bad. Wikstrom's team is a bit more bulky and should be a little more annoying to take out, but looking at this team besides Scizor, you should be just fine. And even with Scizor, as we went over earlier, with such a wide move pool and a 170 special attack, you should still be good. And for Diantha, just go with the original moveset that we have for Mega Gengar, and you'll have super effective moves for all of our Pokemon except Aurorus, which shouldn't be too difficult to take out. I know we're basically just saying, yeah, use Gengar and you'll win, but it's true, it's just that good. When you're this good and you can enter the league with some extra levels, it's just no competition. There's a reason why this boy doesn't exist in the games anymore. It's busted, and taking down Diantha and the Kalos Elite Four quicker than Leon's Rillaboom ever could.
In regular Sun and Moon, for the first time, we're actually using a starter, Primarina. Primarina actually resists every move that Hala has and can deal Moonblast in return for massive damage. Sparkling Aria alone is enough to easily wash out all of Olivia's Pokemon. The only concern is Alolan Golem has Sturdy, so it's going to get at least one Thunder Punch off, but fortunately Primarina is definitely tanky enough to endure it. For Acerola, Sparkling Aria and Ice Beam will deal with most of her team pretty easily, and you could even run Shadow Ball as part of your moveset just to make sure you KO Frostlass, but honestly, it's not a big deal if you don't. As for Kahili, Ice Beam covers 3 of her 5 Pokemon, Sparkling Aria will easily take out her Fire-type Oricorio, and you can simply outdamage her Skarmory. Now, Professor Kukui is the hard part, since his Magnezone has Sturdy and Thunderbolt, and his Decidueye carries the Gracium Z, so you absolutely need to one-shot that. For this reason, we'd recommend adding Calm Mind to Primarina's moveset with TM04, which is easily purchasable in Seafolk Village. You can set up on the Lycan Rock very easily, but have Citrus Berry equipped for good measure. Because remember, you need to take a Magnezone's Thunderbolt at some point. After that, between Sparkling Aria and Moonblast, you should be able to clean up pretty easily. We haven't really talked about speed since most of the Pokemon in this league are really slow, as most things in Alola are, but you definitely want to make sure that you have a speed boosting nature or some speed investment with EVs to outspeed Kukui's Decidueye. Because if you get hit with that physical Bloom Doom, it's curtains for Primarina. As long as you outspeed and you've gotten a few Calm Mind boosts, Ice Beam should be enough to clutch this. And oh boy, lucky me, I get to do Ultra Alola too. Now, we were honestly about to admit defeat on this one. This is definitely the hardest league to solo, despite these games having a massive dex of 400 Pokemon. But we did find one Pokemon that is possible to solo with, but maybe not probable. Once again, it's Crocodile. For this run, we'll start with the moveset of Bulk Up, Earthquake, Crunch, and Low Kick, which you'll need to get from the Move Tutor. The Crocodile must be at the maximum allowed level entering the league, which is level 66. It probably needs a good nature and maybe some speed and attack investment in its EVs as well. You will absolutely need the Moxie ability for this.
And you're gonna need a ton of Salac Berries.
Mullane is really easy, just Earthquake. For Acerola, you'll need a Salac Berry equipped on Crocodile, which you can find in Pony Wilds. This berry will raise Crocodile's speed in a pinch, allowing you to take out the one threat on her team, that being Frostlass. Fortunately, if you take your time setting up and gathering damage from her Bayonet, the berry should activate and you'll be golden. Olivia should be fairly easy, again, just bulk up an Earthquake if needed here. The only reason we saved her for later is just so that Armaldo's X-Scissor is slightly less scary. Now, before you face Kahili, not only will you need a second Solic Berry, but you will also need to replace Crunch with Stone Edge. Why? Because that's the only move that guarantees a one-shot against her Hawlucha, which is most likely coming out second. Fortunately, you can bulk up at least twice against her Braviary at max level before the Solic Berry activates. From there, Stone Edge the Hawlucha and Crunch all the rest of them. And for the very end, How. This fight definitely gave us the biggest fit of all. How's Alolan Raichu alone gatekeeps tons of possible Pokemon, along with his Noivern and Tauros just because of how fast they are. But again, assuming that you have a third Solic Berry and you're around level 70 for this fight, Crocodile should tank the first Focus Blast from Raichu, activating its Solic Berry and setting up for the sweep. It's worth mentioning that you definitely need to choose Rowlet at the beginning of the game so that How will have Flareon and Primarina on his team. I know, Primarina sounds like it would be pretty hard to deal with, but trust me, a +2 attack Earthquake does kill. And obviously, Flareon is the easiest evolution to take out. The other Pokemon on this team that's somewhat problematic is Crabominable, which could come out second on How's team. This is the sole reason we've carried Low Kick with us this far, as it's the only move that reliably KOs Crabominable. Sadly, this means that you will again have to gamble on Stone Edge to take out Noivern, but the rest will all fall to Earthquake. Anyway, that was about more research than I've done on any college paper ever, so I'm more than ready to turn it back over to Hybrid for Galar.
As we reach the final region that we can go over before Scarlet and Violet come out, we're probably at the last region where we can do this easily, because if Scarlet and Violet is as open world as they say they are, it might be difficult to figure out what Pokemon works for the Elite Four, if they even end up having one. But for Galar, Galar is nowhere near as open world as we thought, so all the Pokemon are pretty accessible. And before we begin, I just want to say something. I hate Electivire. Not because it's a bad Pokemon or anything, it's actually kind of cool. But frickin' John and the rest of the members of the Champion League love Electivire so much that it just makes me want to hate it to neutralize the excessive love.
Oh dude, Electivire is so cool, what an awesome Pokemon.
But, despite that, as much as it pains me to say this, Electivire is our pick for the best Mon for the Galar Elite Four. Now, let's define what the Elite Four is in Galar, cause it is a bit obscure. After the terrible story with Chairman Rosenall, the Galar tournament continues, and you have 4 consecutive matches before Leon. It's Bede, Nessa, Bee or Alistair depending on your version of the game, and then Raihan. So you're looking at Fairy Psychic, Water, Fighting or Ghost, and a weird mix of dragons and weather conditions. Not the most straightforward Elite Four, of course, so because of that, you can't really have a straightforward answer with the Pokemon. But the great part about all this is, Electivire not only has moves via TM and TR that he can use and swap on the fly, he's also a pure electric type, meaning ground is the only weakness it has, and the only thing we need to watch out for, which we will. First things first, Nessa's whole team is weak to electric, not a single water and ground type in her team, so that's taken care of. For Bede's mix of fairy and psychic types, you have access to Iron Tail via TR, but Iron Tail isn't always the most reliable move, I know. But it is your best shot, and you can always pop on an accuracy boosting item for good measure. If not, using a stab electric move here should pose no problem. Just make sure you have Earthquake via TR ready on your Electivire, because you'll anyways be using it for the rest of the league. For Alistair, the TR for Darkest Lair will literally take out his entire team. For B, while Electivire isn't known to be a special attacker, it still has a good special attack stat of 95, which makes the Psychic TR pretty powerful. Not to mention, for all these battles, you can Dynamax, giving you 3 turns just to absolutely obliterate everyone, especially Alistair and B, since neither one of them have good resistances. Seriously, I don't know what's up with these Ghost and Fighting type trainers having little to no resistances, but it seems to happen quite often. Raihan is a bit of a problem here, and he does have a ground type with Flygon, but Electivire gains access to Ice Punch and Earthquake, so as long as you slap them on this fight, you're sitting pretty. And those 2 moves will definitely come in clutch, as all of the Pokemon in Raihan's team are weak to one of those 2 typings, and on top of that, they should help you for the Leon battle as well. The Leon fight really does depend on which starter you picked. I think your ideal starter choice here would be Scorbunny, so that you don't have to deal with either a Seismitoad or Rhyperior. But in general, with 1 electric type move, Ice Punch, Earthquake, and probably Darkest Lariat, seeing as Leon has 2 ghost type Pokemon on his team, you'd be sitting pretty. And this moveset legit checks every member on his team if the player picks Scorbunny.
You like Electivire now, don't you, Squidward?
Shut up, John! Again, I was against having Electivire as the mascot, but after this, we might just have to, because not only are we the Champion League podcast, but we're entirely a Gen 8 themed podcast. It's like the world is telling me that fate loves irony. Again, if for some reason you haven't already, be sure to check out part 1 of this collab over on JPR's channel and subscribe to his channel. He's actually one of the few PokeTubers who I still watch and binge content on, so I'm not just saying it when I say that he has some great content. Take care of yourselves, have a wonderful day, and I'll see y'all over on the next one, alright? Later, bye!